I didn't think we'd actually be talking about this. You know, when this guy entered the trade market and everybody was talking about what teams could be suitable fits, I had no inkling in my mind that said, hey, we're going to make a Vancouver Canucks video about this guy. We're going to talk about him in Vancouver for the umpteenth time, because it's not like we haven't had this conversation before. Today, we are talking about Nashville Predators right-handed defenseman Tyson Barrie. We're going to go over the updates since the last time we had talked about him, go over his situation, and talk about how exactly the Vancouver Canucks may get involved here. Now, last time we had talked about Barrie, it was in the initial video wherein we talked about the Elliotte Friedman report, that Tyson Barrie was apparently given permission to talk to other teams, how the Predators had themselves a conversation and Barrie was okay with it. He was like, yeah, I kind of want out. There was a trade request in there. The Preds gave Barrie and his representatives permission to negotiate on behalf of them in order to send Barrie to a team that wants him. We already talked about this and more in the last video. We talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Oilers, the Avalanche, some potential teams that could be tossed out there as destinations for him to go. A lot of these have more links than one, and you could understand why fans of these particular teams would want a guy like Barrie on their team. Barrie is 32 years old, right-handed defenseman, as we had said. He's a small guy, 5'11", 196, making $4.5 million a year till the end of 23-24. And for a guy who this season has only put up 10 points in 23 games, you could say this is a little bit of a decline. Because last year he did have, 55 points in 85 games played, actually. Yeah, he had 85 games last year. That's pretty cool. He had 61 games with the Oilers and 24 with the Predators, so do the math. But Tyson Barrie was a pretty good point producer, getting the 55 points that year. He also has had multiple 50, near 60-point seasons in the past, so the fact that he is only on pace for 35 points this year could be seen as a decline, which is fine, because 35 points out of most defensemen I think is still pretty good. It's just, there's a standard here for Tyson Barrie, and the situation in Nashville has gotten to the point now where he is unhappy with the progression, and now he wants out. But before we get into the Vancouver Canucks conversation, I also wanted to talk about what exactly the Nashville Predators' response to this entire thing has been. Because on PenaltyBoxRadio.com, you had yourselves an article published by Alex Docherty, going over how Predators GM Barry Trotz was very disappointed to hear about Tyson Barrie's response to the healthy scratch. Now, Barry Trotz, of course, we all recognize him from his time as a legendary NHL player and coach. He's now the GM of the Preds, and he had himself a few comments made on Jared Stillman's radio show, 102.5 The Game. Trotz essentially is responding to what it was that Elliotte Friedman reported. We had already talked about this, but Friedman said the Predators have given permission to Barrie to talk to other teams. He is expected to be a scratch versus the Rangers and is UFA after the season. This allows the team and the player to see if there's a better fit elsewhere. Here is Barrie's response to Barrie. And I said it like that particularly because it's funny. Here's Barry Trotz's response to Tyson Barrie. Tyson's game hasn't translated as well as we had liked with us this year. He was having a tough time not being on the first power play, and with the new system, he wasn't quite fitting in. After meeting late in the week with Barry Trotz and head coach Andrew Burnett, Barrie was informed he would be scratched for Saturday's game against the Rangers. The response from Barrie apparently did not sit well with Trotz. Different players react to it differently. I didn't like the way he reacted to it. Trotz emphasized this multiple times during the interview, saying he was very disappointed in Tyson's reaction. He even returned to his previous refrain of, "I want you to come to Nashville to win and not to retire," when referring to Barrie. Trotz also mentioned that the Barrie scratching was dictated by his play, indicating that the team was not happy with his performance on the ice. He concluded by saying the team would proceed to find a better fit for Barrie elsewhere in the league. But even though you have yourselves these comments where Barry Trotz is saying, yeah, I was disappointed with the way Barrie handled him getting scratched. He got scratched because of his on-ice play. He hasn't fit with us as well as we probably would have wanted him to. Barry Trotz then goes out there and expresses frustration about what Elliotte Friedman ended up tweeting out. We were very disappointed that all of this got out, Trotz said about the leak, because there's only about 4 people in the world that knew about it. I was very disappointed in that. It didn't come from the Preds, I do know that 100%. Obviously, someone felt that story should be out there, and they put it out there. We'll get on the phones and say, Tyson's not happy in his situation right now. Are there any takers? There might be, might not. And I'm sure him and his agent will be doing the same thing. So, with this in mind, because Barry Trotz is so brashly going out there and saying on the radio, yeah, there was only 4 people in the world that would have known that Tyson Barrie and his agent were given permission to seek a trade, and it definitely didn't come from us people here in the Preds organization. So from that conclusion, it's pretty obvious to see that maybe there was some sort of an agent leak, or maybe Barrie himself texted somebody and it eventually got out to Friedman. Somebody wanted this story out there, and it probably wasn't the Nashville Predators, we'll say that. That just speaks more volumes to the frustration that Tyson Barrie is feeling in this situation. And when it comes to whether or not the Vancouver Canucks, the hometown team wherein Barrie is from, we had ourselves a segment on Donnie and Dolly the other day where Rick Dhaliwal goes out there and says this, that cap room is going to be a problem because Barrie is making $4.5 million. That's not cheap. He then says that obviously Barrie's agent is going to call Vancouver and see if there's a fit. Dalibor then says that the Vancouver Canucks have been one of these teams that have liked Barrie for years and years. And yeah, I'm not going to go out there and discredit that. We had been seeing Tyson Barrie rumors to Vancouver ever since the guy was a Colorado Avalanche. We made a video a few years ago talking about Tyson Barrie for Ben Hutton and how that would have been a crazy disaster trade if the Vancouver Canucks made it, because Ben Hutton was supposed to be the bee's knees. This is before Colorado had Cale Makar, so Barrie was like the best guy on that blue line. Then when he was a Leaf, when he was an Oiler, everybody was talking about Rumours, right-handed defenseman, offensive guy, could he play with Hughes, etc., etc. So there were always Tyson Barrie to Vancouver rumors, especially for a guy who is from the area. So now that he is on the market once more, I guess this is the one team that we could have talked about in the trade request video that didn't get mentioned. Of course, the former teams of Toronto, Edmonton, Colorado, they come to mind, but Rick Dhaliwal's going out there and saying it himself. The Vancouver Canucks have liked Barrie for years, and it's probably likely that the agent goes out there and reaches out to Alvi and says, hey, is there a fit for my guy in your team? We know you want right-handed defense. Why don't you get our guy? Dhaliwal goes out there and then says that because the contract situation is such a paramount aspect to this entire conversation, it's why a name like Ethan Bear works, because he's not going to be expensive, and you don't need to trade any extended assets to get him. He's just a free agent right now. We already made the video yesterday saying that the Canucks are the team to beat when it comes to the Ethan Bear conversations. They seem to be the front runners in that. So if you wanted to say that they have themselves a guy who is almost locked up, low-key on the down low, he's maybe 70-80% there to being a Vancouver Canuck, making a Tyson Barrie trade would be a really intriguing move to chuck a monkey wrench into the entire Ethan Bear plans. Because if you get Barrie and Bear, firstly, it's going to be a nightmare for the commentators to go out there and say those repeated names over and over again. But then you have to think to yourself, okay, well, if everybody's healthy, once Carson Soucy comes back, what happens? You've got Hughes, Hronek, Soucy, Cole, Myers, Zadorov, Bear, and Barrie. That's 8 guys. If you want to assume Bear is the odd man out, then what do you do with the other guys? Do you trade away Tyler Myers? Do you try to find a fit for him? That guy's making $6 million till the end of this season, so that is going to be a difficult contract to move. What do you do with Friedman? What do you do with Juleson? You send everybody back down? All of a sudden, Abbey looks good. They can make a real run for it if they have some very good NHL caliber defending on their squad, and I'm going to say NHL caliber because Noah Juleson gets a few blocks here and there. I know he sucks everywhere else, but he's been a bit better than Myers as of late, so there's that. So it does kind of get into a logjam once you think about the extra options the Canucks could have. And furthermore, you have to start thinking, is it really worth it for the team to go out there and get a pure offensive guy when they've already got Hughes and Hronek on the team? Do you want half of your entire decor to be comprised of only offensive guys? I know Quinn can play the defensive side of the game really well, actually, but the point remains. You would be sacrificing a little bit of defensive depth if you get a guy like Bear and you prioritize him over a guy like Bear. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, about the Nashville Predators GM getting upset and pissed off at the way Barrie has handled the entire situation, and how the Vancouver Canucks could get involved in this too. Do you think the Canucks should go after Bear? Do you think this is a worthwhile investment of Vancouver's time and money? Why or why not? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.